Hello, everybody. It's me again, Pacific. Today, I wanted to talk about more Hong Kong. I have lived here now 9 months, and by the time all's said and done, it will have been for over 1 year. I wanted to talk about Hong Kong Chinese. When you live in a place, you find out real quick what life is like. And I have to say, there are always exceptions. The generalizations I'm going to make, the disclaimer I'm going to give is as follows. Not everybody is like this that I'm describing. There are some nice people. But when I talk about my experiences, these experiences are listed as being what I have experienced on a day-by-day basis, continuously talking to others of other ethnicities that have experienced also the same thing. This has been discussed by expats. This has been discussed by Filipinas, Indonesian, India, Pakistani, and all the other races that live, dwell, and visit Hong Kong. First, let's talk about the main issue today, the Chinese and their rudeness. I have found that when I came here, I was very open-minded about the culture. I love Chinese culture. They have a 5,000-year rich history, something to be quite proud of. I love their clothing, their jewelry, their furniture, their things. But as I have spent time in this city, I have unfortunately noticed a lack of manners by many Chinese men, women, children, whatever, all ages, businessmen, older Chinese women. One of the things I notice when you walk in this city, there's crowds. They're unavoidable. You're going to get bumped. Normal. But what you have with the Chinese is they will ram into you as hard as they can. Many of them will not move for anybody, but will force everybody to move for them. They will come right up to you and stop and not budge. Women do this all the time. I have found many of the Chinese schoolgirls, they'll walk 6 wide. They won't move for anybody. They have bashed right into me. There is a calloused hardness that exists with these people. I don't know if it's big city. I don't know if it's Chinese culture. I don't know what it is. But I have noticed consistently every day, guys that are half my age will slam into my shoulder, not say "ngoy" or sorry or anything. Very, very rude. And I've seen this consistently over and over. I have many fine Filipina and Filipino as friends in this city. Most of them are domestic helpers, and they have told me story after story of their experiences working with the Chinese. The Chinese have the gall to tell the Filipino domestic helper things like, "You're dirty, you're less than, you're nothing." They have been told this by their employers. This is told them by employers who have no problem with their work ethic. Their job performance has been stellar. Yet the Chinese feel that they have the freedom to put down the domestic helper and say horrible, awful things about them, most of which are not true. The Chinese often accuse the Filipina of stealing their things, only to find out later the Chinese woman simply misplaced where she put them. I have heard stories of Chinese women burning the Filipinas' hands in hot water, hitting them, striking them, locking them in their rooms, all kinds of things. The Chinese men have taken the domestic helper and made them have sex with them when the wife was gone. These are real sweethearts, let me tell you. I had a domestic helper by the name of Marlene tell me 2 weeks ago. The Chinese, a lot of them don't raise their own babies. They have the domestic helper do that for them. And the reason? The Chinese male and female, their god is money. Their god is money. They believe cash is more important than relationships, more important than integrity, more important than kindness and compassion. I have seen it here in Hong Kong. The Chinese women will not even bother to involve themselves with a foreign man unless there's money involved. It is unreal. And a lot of people back home in my country say a lot of the Filipinos are looking for a green card, and I have not found that to be the case. A lot of Filipinas are looking for a man that loves them, whether he's got money or not. I cannot say the same about the Chinese females. If you don't have money, you don't get noticed. To prove my point, I have seen some American, Australian, British men that are old and not handsome, and they're with a gorgeous Chinese woman. Everybody knows what's going on. It's all about the money, stupid. The Chinese are very hard workers, and I used to respect that. There's two types of workers here. The kind that have no choice but to work to survive, and for those, I feel for them. But then the other ones work into obsessive compulsive disorder for the sake of earning as much money as they can. And when they make that money, they wear it. I have found the Hong Kong Chinese taxi cab and minibus drivers to be the rudest sons of bitches on the planet. Those people will run you down in a crosswalk. You come up to an intersection, people are crossing the street. The taxi cabs will lay on that horn, they will not slow down, they will accelerate, and they will force everybody out of the way. Every day, all the time, without exception. The minibus drivers do the same thing. They'll run you over. They'll go around the corner so fast, throwing passengers out of their seats, hitting bumps, everything. I just read in the Hong Kong paper that the insurance rates for taxi cabs and minibus drivers is going to go up, and of course they're all protesting. I'm glad the rates are going up, and I hope they continue to go up, and I hope that the Hong Kong government would start regulating taxi cab drivers and the way they drive so dangerous, lawless, recklessly, and with no regard to human life. I have seen streets where there is no sidewalk, narrow, little, quaint, almost European-style streets. They're marketplaces. There's hundreds of people in the streets. These taxi cabs come down there at 60 miles an hour. They will not slow, they will not yield, and they're laying on the horn, and that cab is coming within an inch of taking somebody's backside out. I have taken my flat in my hand and slammed it down on the hood of a taxi as I crossed at a stop sign that he had. They'll run it, and they'll force me right out of their way. I have kicked several taxi cabs as they almost ran into me, and they have no idea that what they're doing is wrong, and they don't care. I find Chinese women to be very stuck up, very egotistical, very rude. Often they can be very loud and obnoxious, pushy, demanding, greedy as all get out. I find them to be very unfriendly. Again, there's exceptions to every rule. I've met some Chinese that I like very much. There's a little restaurant I go to in Shangwan named Harmony. The staff there is wonderful. My treatment always has been excellent. They're good people. I know several Chinese people that are very kind, very warm-hearted. But the ones I'm referring to don't know how to smile, don't know how to laugh. They're mean, they're angry, they're intense. The other thing that's been discussed by some Filipinas and other ethnicities is some of the Chinese are just downright crazy. A crowd of people's going straight ahead, and a Chinese guy coming towards that crowd will suddenly, right when he's within an inch of the person, decide he's going to turn left, just cutting off everybody with his baggage and whatever he's hauling. And I mean, people are banging into the guy, and no sorry, no excuse me, and you yell at the guy and he turns around and looks at you like you're in the wrong. You know, around the world it's interesting. Most people seem to integrate into other societies, but I've noticed even in America, you don't have Indonesian town or Filipino town or Japan town, but you always got a Chinatown. Why is that? These people don't integrate well with others. They stay in their culture, they don't want anybody else in their culture, but they want our money. They want my money and your money and everybody else's money, and they're not going to give you a smile for it either. I have found that there is a negative air with most of these Chinese. You walk through Hong Kong at any given time. The businessmen, they won't move. These are professionals. I also notice the Chinese, which like to judge people for what they feel is a violation of their cultural norms. They'll feel free to walk against the walk sign, run red lights, and violate the basic laws of Hong Kong. And I'm not sure why that is. I've heard stories of domestic helpers telling me that the Chinese employer will call them dirty, and I have found the Filipina to be very hygienically at the top of the list. They're clean, they shave their underarms, they smell good. But the same Filipino told me that the Chinese women don't shave their armpits, have body odor, bad breath. Their shirts stink so bad that they have to bleach them before they can wash them. These Filipino get paid ridiculously low wages to put up with the abuse from the Chinese people. Now, I've heard a couple of stories of employees that have had good Chinese bosses, and I applaud you, Chinese people, for treating your helper nicely and not like a slave. But I have noticed the Chinese do look down on anybody that's not Chinese. And they're not even nice to each other. I mean, I see it out here. In Hong Kong, it's a free-for-all. It's every man for himself. It's a pretty self-centered, self-driven society. You have a lot of 20-something-year-old Chinese girls that are still haven't grown up, and they're chasing Hello Kitty stuff around, Hello Kitty shirts, and they go to the malls and shop and shop and shop and shop, and they won't move out of anybody's way, and they click along in their high heels, and they got the whole little attitude thing. These are just my observations, but I've talked to so many people, and they see it. I was sitting down at Times Square in Causeway Bay talking on the phone to a friend of mine about some of the garbage I had endured that day from the lack of kindness of the Chinese. And the guy from India sitting right next to me that I did not know, he looked right at me, smiled, started laughing. He says, "What you say is accurate." We all see it. The only people that don't see it are the ones that have their heads in the sand, or the ones that got big money that the Chinese are smiling at. I've had to learn a hard lesson after 45 years. All around the world, everything's driven by money. You got money, you got friends. A Chinese employer rudely told a very close, personal, special friend of mine, "You have your God, I don't believe in your God. I believe in money. If you don't have money, you don't have friends." That is the philosophy of most of the Hong Kong Chinese. And whenever you have people loving money, you can bet that compassion for souls and other people is going to go right down the toilet bowl. Most Hong Kong Chinese that have domestic helpers do not spend time with their children at all. I know another Filipina raising a 6-month-old girl. Said she to me, "Mom cannot calm her when she cries. She cries even more. But when I pick her up and hold her, she relaxes and she stops crying and she smiles." Do you know why? Because the Chinese babies are bonding with the Filipina domestic helper, not the maternal mother. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, Chinese men and women. Money is not everything. It doesn't buy happiness, I can tell by your faces. I see your faces on the bus, the tram, the ferry, and on the streets. You're unhappy, you look hard and calloused, and you're miserable, and you're very, very, very rude. You guys need to take stock. I don't care what your culture teaches. I don't care how old it is. The way you treat people is just wrong. And one day, you will not be at the top. Every culture comes and goes. Every nation rises and falls, and so will China. And I love China. But the more time I spend here, I will be happy to go back to the United States. Because even though we got problems there, at least I can still find some nice people there. And I find nice people in Hong Kong. But I have yet to really connect with the Chinese. And before anybody says, well, maybe that's because it's your fault, it's what you make of it. No. I get along with India, Pakistan, British, some Aussies. I say some because some Aussies get to Hong Kong and they get an attitude too. And I'm not sure what generates that. Maybe some of that has been because they've experienced the same as I and they're tired of the bullshit. Unfortunately, I find a lot of Chinese are living their entire life chasing the god of money and not enjoying life along the way. When I see a Chinese couple actually laughing and smiling, I make a mental note of that because that is not the norm. And other people will stare at them with daggers in their eyes. A lady friend and I were at a traffic light last weekend waiting for the light to change, and the female that I was with said something that was funny. We started laughing. We weren't being obnoxious. All the Chinese turn around and give us the hairy eyeball like we had committed a crime. They've got some cultural norms that I don't accept. I'm out in public. I don't think it's a sin to laugh at something funny with a friend of mine. But that goes to show you, Hong Kong's a wonderful place. Money isn't everything. If you believe money will buy you happiness, just spend some time with the Chinese here and you'll see it isn't so. But there's some good Chinese out there, and to you people I salute you. Thank you for making my visit enjoyable. Thank you for giving me some nice memories. To the rest of you guys need to get a grip in Manners 101. I may be a dumb American, but I'm a human being too. You're not better than me. Last week at this park here, there were thousands of Indonesian Muslim women pouring into the park for their holiday, their day off, domestic helpers. I watched the Chinese run around the jogging track around the outer edge of this park. There were so many women coming in. They were shoulder to shoulder, breast to back. They couldn't stop. It was a river of humanity. What did the Chinese do? Push them, shove them, put their hands in their faces, and blast right through. I got so angry, I went out on the path and I put my hand on a Chinese man's shoulder and I said, "Hey, stop it." He turned around and he said, "Who are you?" I was incensed. I said, "Who are you? I'm a human being and the way you're treating these ladies is wrong. You Chinese got to realize you can't just treat people that way." He just gave me a dirty look and continued running. The runners in Hong Kong, they're nuts. They are heartless, compassionless, all in the name of physical fitness. They're Nazis. I've seen it with the Australians on the Bowen Road. They will knock people right over, not move for anybody. These people in this workout fitness mentality, I tell you what, they're like the old Romans. They've become so hardened and callous that they'll just run over anybody that gets in their way. The day might come when I might start carrying a knife and slash some legs. Just kidding. I'm not going to do that, but it's tempting. I don't know why people are so mean here. I don't understand what drives it. Even me, I've gotten hardened and calloused as I age, but I still care about people. But I'm getting kind of tired of the rudeness of the Chinese. And yes, some of those Aussie expats that live here. You guys need to come down to earth. You're not all that. I'm done with my commentary. Other than that, Hong Kong's a great place. If you can avoid all of that garbage, there's a lot of great stuff here. This is Pacific signing off. And to the Chinese people, have a good day. Try to smile. It's not a sin.